everybody, I'm Drew Patrick, your ETV Sports Director. We have some breaking news. Justin Lustig has stepped down as Edinboro University's head football coach to become the running back coach and special teams coordinator at Syracuse University. Lustig was brought in to be the new man in charge last January. He was the architect in the largest turnaround in Division II college football history, bringing the Fighting Scots from an 0-11 record to this year 9-2. Lustig earned a gauntlet of postseason honors, including PSAC West Coach of the Year, the Don Hanson Football Gazette Super Region 1 Co-Coach of the Year, and the D2Football.com's Division II Coach of the Year. He is a native of Erie who played high school football at Cathedral Prep. The Edinboro University coach said that this job was a homecoming for him, as he stated, "Thank you, Edinboro, for the opportunity to return home to an area that our family loves so much. Coaches and players come and go, but the accomplishments this team has achieved in 1 year will be forever the players and the universities to hold on to. We will be endlessly grateful for our relationships we have developed with our players and within the community. Edinboro is a great place and has a strong future ahead of it," end quote. Edinboro Athletic Director Bruce Baumgardner was disappointed in the decision, but understood what Coach Lustig had accomplished in his 1 year, stating in a public comment, "Obviously we are disappointed that Justin has decided to move on to another coaching position, but at the same time our program is in very good shape. We come off a 9-2 season and have an excellent staff in place, and due to their efforts and Justin's, we feel very good about the direction of our program," end quote. Coach Lustig was scheduled to deliver a panel discussion on Monday morning for the academic festival currently at Edinboro University. That panel has been canceled. For updates on this story and many more, head over to edinboronow.com. Welcome back to the Scott Sports Show. We'll now continue on here and we'll talk wrestling as their season came to a close at Nationals with a pretty good performance by some of our wrestlers. We're joined by assistant coach Cliff Moore. Coach, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So, Coach, let's talk about Nationals and how the team did. Before we get into individuals, how do you feel that the team did? We sent a lot of wrestlers there to that event. How do you feel the team did as a whole?
As a whole, I think we did well. There's a lot of ups and downs at Nationals. You know, you have one big upset, and then the next round's even tougher. You know, so you've got to constantly be ready for a big match. And the first match is always tough to get out, and you saw that with we had a tough loss. First round, kind of a big upset for us, but overall, all 8 guys made it to the second day of Nationals, which is, I think, might have been the first time ever we had 8 guys the second day of Nationals. So, it could have been better, it could have been worse.
Absolutely, it's always a mixed bag. March Madness doesn't get any more mad than March Madness.
Right.
So let's talk about individuals now. Of course, our top finisher, Sean Russell at 125, he's now an All-American. What have you seen from his whole year, and what did he take into that tournament to really attack, especially in the wrestlebacks?
Yeah. He scored points. That's the biggest thing. He beat the guys he was supposed to, and he beat them handily without having to be close, without putting a lot of stress. When you can separate yourself from those guys that you're supposed to beat and beat them by 4 or 5 points, it gives you that cushion to where you can get in a kind of a zone of where you're good, stay where you're good, wrestle where you're good, score points, and it kind of takes care of itself. It really is how he wrestled all year long. He wrestled well all year long. His wins or his losses were to guys that placed above him. He didn't have any real bad losses, so he was very consistent this year, and it showed at Nationals being a 7th seed, placing 7th. So.
And with this group, also with Sean, did he kind of have a chip on his shoulder? I mean, I know this really does not matter, but when it came to like all the promotional stuff for the season this year, it was 3 wrestlers on that poster. Sean was not on there. And then there was some sort of poll on GoFightingScots.com. Which one do you think would be the most likely to be the All-American? Sean was 3rd in that one. Do you think that plays an effect at all, or does he have a little underdog role?
I think that he knows he's done some things that have put him where he is, and hopefully this keeps him on the right track and keeps him moving forward. And you know, we expect bigger things from him if he stays focused and keeps progressing the way we want him
to. Another one of the wrestlers that got a last-minute addition to the tournament was, of course, the senior Chase Delandy. What do you have to say with Chase and just coming into this tournament, knowing he got that spot, and especially in that first match, just attacking and getting that upset? For this being his last collegiate tournament, well, what did you see from Chase?
I saw him out there wrestling like he can, really. I mean, he's been in and out of lineup here and there. He hasn't had a lot of experience in competition for us, and you know, that's a tough thing to stay motivated for 5 years and be a part of the team. And I think it was great to see him get some wins at nationals, score bonus points for us, which is huge for our team. I mean, you know, we were top 20 and we were half a point away from being, you know, 24th or 25th. You know, so it was some big wins he had for us, and you know, it was kind of a great end to his career.
And you know what? We closed the book on Chase, but you look at the other 7 wrestlers there. You still got years with them. To have such a young team and to still be competing at the level, and you've seen the younger players, or younger wrestlers, excuse me, now get that experience of nationals. How does that help you going forward?
I think all experience helps. They're pretty experienced wrestlers. They know when they've wrestled in big matches before. They've got to learn to deal with it the way they need to perform. I think they all want to do it. It's just putting it all together. It's a difficult thing when, you know, you don't even know who's going to show up across the mat. You just got to work by yourself. So those guys, you know, we always looking forward to the next year, and especially after nationals. You know, immediately when the last match is over, you're thinking about next year. We don't have time. We don't have time to take a break. We need to. If these guys want to do what they tell us they want to do, we got to start working right now. So hopefully they're excited for that. We started back on the mats yesterday as a team, so hopefully we can make some big jumps this spring and summer, be ready for next fall.
So what does the off season look like for you guys as coaches and for the team?
It's consistency. It's every day getting something to improve. You know, they need to improve in a lot of areas. We'll focus on that as a coaching staff. We'll focus on that. But a lot of guys need to do their own little thing that where they need to work, and whether that's mental, physical, you know, getting stronger, working on certain techniques. It really is it's a process that they need to embrace, and it needs to be consistent. During the season, we're not consistent with our training. We're focused on competition. We have days off here and there. We have mornings. We have different scheduled practices for different days of different competitions. Right now, it's about consistency and being in there every day, 3:30, working out, wrestling, lifting in the mornings, and getting your drill times in the mornings as well. So this time is the time they can focus on putting a lot of time in, not worrying about competition, to get better.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for coming on the show, and congratulations on a great year.
Thank you.
And the Scott Sports Show continues on right after this. Don't go anywhere.
My experience at Perico has been so great. I feel like it's really my time for school now. I tried going back to school when I first graduated from high school. I just wasn't ready.
It's closer to home. It's very much more affordable than the other colleges in the city. When I finished my degree here at Perico, it would provide me with higher pay. I can actually grow more in my company than I would if I wasn't going to school.
Perico College, affordable, career-ready education.
We dig deep.
We overcome obstacles.
We come together.
We prepare.
We hit the ground running.
And we achieve our goals.
We train hard.
And we compete even harder.
We reach new heights.
We win.
And at Edinboro University, we create champions on and off the field.
Welcome back to the Scott Sports Show. Let's now talk track and field, as we're joined by head coach Annie Carlson and Corey Weething. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So it's been a while since
Yes.
we talked last, and a lot has happened. So let's go back a couple of weeks to the Charlotte 49er Classic. I have a lot of numbers here.
Good, because I won't remember them all.
And Corey, you had quite the days there at that tournament. Your NCAA provisional time in two events, the 1500 and the 800. Talk a little bit about your performances in those two.
Well, yeah, down in Charlotte, it was a really good opener for like myself and the team as a whole. I think it was pretty motivating to watch like the girls in indoor track and watch the PSAC meet for indoor track and just having to watch it. So it's pretty motivating and makes you want to get out there and really get after it the first few weeks.
So the times for the 1500, 3:51.38 was good for third place in NCAA provisional time, and 800 you took that event at that with 1 minute 51.94. When you have someone perform that well this early in the season, what does that do for the coaching staff?
Well, it's really exciting for us. I should also point out that he took third in the 1500, but the other two guys were professional runners. So he was actually the top collegiate runner. So I don't want to make it look like, like he was the top collegiate runner and he ran fast. It's very exciting for us, but what's even more exciting, if I can fast forward a little bit, is he ran faster a week later. I mean, as soon as he ran that, I was texting Ryan, I was like, it's faster. It would have got him into the national meet last year. We won't talk too much about that, but it would have got him into the national meet a year ago. And the first thing Ryan texts back is he's going to run faster. He can run faster. And that's what's exciting. There are times sometimes people do stuff really early on and it kind of scares you. Because in our sport, unlike others, we want to build. Some of the team sports and stuff, you have to get wins to move on to your conference and regional, so you don't get to kind of take weeks off like we have the luxury of doing. We don't need to be performing. In fact, we don't want to be performing at our top at the beginning of the year, because that usually means then you're not performing at your top, at the end of the year. But I don't think Corey has hit a peak yet by any means. I think he has a long ways to go. I don't know if he'd say it. I think he would agree, but I don't know if he'd say it out loud. But that's what's really exciting about it, is there's still more.
And also at the Charlotte 49er Classic, there were 5 other top 5 finishes on the men's side, and then on the women's side, there were some records broken at the Charlotte 49er Classic. Gabby Schultz now has the school record in the discus.
She broke her own school record.
Broke her own school record.
Yeah, broke her own school record.
But, I mean, just continuing to shatter records here, only in her second year.
Yes, and she was less than a meter. I don't want to say it because, like I said, too many numbers. But way less than a meter off of, I think closer to a half a meter off of provisional qualifying mark there, too. So that's very exciting that she could be on the national list, hopefully, in the next couple weeks in 2 events.
And speaking of younger runners on the team, you also have Lisa Kosman, a school record in the 200-meter dash. That was in the provisionals of that match. She has a school record as a freshman.
Yes, and she is not far off in the 100 too, so we would hope. You don't want to get too excited too early. You don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, but she's very close there too. So yes, that's very exciting. I know last week she had the top time in the 100 and the second fastest time in the conference in the 200. I didn't check after last week, but that's still very exciting that she's staying up there, and hopefully at the conference meet again can perform big for us there as well.
And also at the 49er Classic, a couple more PSAC qualifying marks. Abby Peters and Casey Jones, Molly Regan, Abby Peters again, and Pia Bridger. To have those PSAC qualifiers early on in the year, how does that go for preparation? Where do you go from there?
Well, what's exciting about that is sometimes when we don't have great meets early on, it puts us in a pinch, because you have to keep doing the same events over and over and over again, and it's good, again, when you talk about how we can kind of take weeks off or back off and things like that. This week we have a whole bunch of people running kind of different events, for lack of a better thing to say. I'm bumping a lot of my short sprinters up and we're going to run 400s, or some of my more 400 people we're bumping down and running 100. So it's nice because they already have those qualifying marks. We can play around with things. When you're having to do your main events every single week in order to hit those qualifying times, it doesn't give us time to kind of play around like that. So yeah, in total we had 14 PSAC qualifiers, individual qualifiers, not in, it was multiple events, but individual qualifiers that week. And it's been fun because now coming back, this week we can kind of play. We're sitting a lot of people this week, which is good for them too. They can train through it. So it makes our job a little easier because it gives us a little bit of flexibility to do different things.
And then this past week, the Tennessee Rust Buster, I love that name for that meet. Again, just great performances. Let's start on the women's side. Gabby Schultz got an NCAA provisional time in the shot put and a PSAC time in the disc as well. For her performance at the Tennessee Rust Buster, what did you see?
Well, it's really exciting. It was, again, it's not much off her PR, but it is farther than she threw this same weekend a year ago. So it's exciting to see those move up and stuff. And again, it's good when we're getting people on the national list and stuff like that, getting that taken care of. So it helps, again, with what we can do kind of rest-wise and things like that moving forward.
And then other great performances, Lisa Kosman again, PSAC in the 100 and 200 meter dash. Casey Jones, who I feel has been here for forever.
I think only like 9 or 10 years.
I think the longest time in a Fighting Scots uniform, Casey Jones. But she took first place in the steeplechase. And the two Abbies, Abby Peters, Abby Lang, PSACs in the 1500, and Molly Regan, a PSAC as well in the pole vault. So again, great performances. How have you felt the ladies have really rode through the indoor season to go here into the outdoor season?
Yeah, it's been very exciting. A lot of them just didn't drop off after that, but again, like I said, I don't feel like we have people like riding a peak. I feel like they're just ready to compete. We also have Sam Seaburn, PSAC qualifying in the disc. So we are up to 16 total on our men's and women's combined. But yeah, I feel like our ladies, they put in the work and stuff in those couple weeks we had in between the PSACs and going into the 49er Classic, and then just rolled that over into our Tennessee trip. And I just feel like we haven't dropped off at all, where sometimes it's almost like we have to take a month break and we go down to some of our early spring trips, which in some cases, hopefully this spring it's looking a little nicer. We won't need the weather. But sometimes we rely on those meets because we don't see nice weather again until almost the PSAC meet. So, and it was nice to see people go out and get the work done there, so it doesn't have to be a stress and we don't have to be, chasing the weather and stuff this spring.
And the men weren't too shabby down there either. Jean Barreto, thank you. Jean Barreto, an NCAA provisional time in the steeplechase. What did you see from him before we get to you, Corey?
Again, he ran right behind somebody almost that entire race. I thought he was going to catch him and hopefully get another W for us there. But he, again, is just off of what it will take to hopefully actually go to the national meet too. So that's even more exciting. It's great when we get people on the national list, and I never want to talk down provisional qualifiers, but it's really exciting when they're right there and you can tell, they're ready to make that next step to actually being a national qualifier.
And then Corey, at this meet you improved on your time in the 800. In this meet, and what is the goal? I know the goal is obviously to always improve, but what is the mindset you have to have going into each race to make sure that you're running your best?
Well, with each race, we're definitely getting focused on the national meet, getting into the national meet, getting a time that's really gonna punch my ticket to go to that meet. So that's a big influence. And coming up a few weeks, I'll be racing Bucknell, the 1500 there, where we're gonna try and go for a national mark as well. Try and get in the meet there, and hopefully later on in the season we can drop down that 800 time about a second or two and just automatically put me in that meet. So that's definitely the goal before each race, is to think about that national meet.
Now, do you have to think about, I mean, I'm guessing at this level you do, but think about what times you have to get, or do you just go out and run? What is the way you approach it?
Yeah, well, definitely for the 800, the first lap is pretty key. you really need to get out a lot faster than you think you should. So getting out fast is pretty important in that race, and I focus a lot on that. But in a race like a 1500, I'm still focused on the clock, making sure I'm hitting my proper splits and stuff, but it's a little more loose. I can just kind of feel it out, go with the pack if the pack's going, and just kind of run without the clock, but keeping a little bit of an eye on it too.
And I'm sure at bigger meets it's easier to do, but when you get to those smaller meets, which we'll get to down the road, and you have the times that you do, which could be ahead of a lot, how do you make sure that you're still running that time and not hanging back with the pack?
Yeah, well, it is a lot, like, in practice, oftentimes, like, I am doing workouts, like, by myself, hitting pretty tough times by myself, so throughout, like, the past few weeks, few months, I have gotten used to, like, doing workouts, running hard by myself, and just kind of making sure you're focused in each race, like staying motivated and hungry before each race.
Also at the Tennessee Rustbuster, a couple of javelin throwers there, 3 top 10 finishes, 2 of those PSAC provisional times. The throwers on both sides, the men and the women, starting to get some points for this team. And I remember there's been a couple years where we said that, you know, the distance and that was the strength of the team, and now we're getting those points extra.
No, we're definitely getting more well-rounded on the men's side as well. We've had that the last couple of years on the women's side, but we've brought in some guys. Liam Craig out of Corey, freshman for us, who will do the decathlon and then can do a lot of other things. He's qualified in the PSAC right now in the decathlon, the long jump, the high jump, and the javelin. So he can do a lot for us. Matt Presbacki also will do the deck for us, but is also qualified in the high jump, just off in the jab, just off in the hurdles. Trey Smith, who is a freshman for us, a jab thrower. And both Trey and Liam are definitely within distance of hitting a provisional qualifying mark as well. Liam is 18 centimeters off, is roughly 6.5 inches. In the jab, that's nothing. You know, when you're throwing, he threw 190 feet this week, so that's, you know, the wind hitting just a little bit right, the arm, you know, I mean, it's nothing, that little bit. And Trey is just a couple meters off, which again isn't, you know, it sounds like, but in the javelin, it's really, you know, we're not talking about that much. So, yeah, we have some guys that are doing some great things right now. I think we're going to surprise a few people in some of those field events and stuff and score more points than we have in a long time in our, I mean, as a whole, but definitely on the sprints and field event side, on the men's side.
And Corey, I want to quickly go back to the training, because you also are on the cross-country team. During that winter session where there is the girls' indoor track, but there's no guys' indoor track team here, what do you have to do to keep training and keep in shape and ready for this season?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely like a focus. Like, you really need to stay on top of making sure you do like the little things, making sure you're eating right, making sure you're doing like your core exercises, stretching. We often, like over the winter season, we run like unattached different places, so we will like drive ourselves to meets and whatnot. So that keeps us pretty focused, keeps us pretty loose, and we're getting used to the feeling of racing and being in a race.
You touched on it a bit, but I want to go back to it, and Corey, you can answer this too. With the early success we've been having, you focus on, yay, we're where we want to be, but when do you start to worry about, are we going to peak early? What coaching aspect and really training aspect is it to make sure that you don't peak early?
Well, right now is not backing off. We don't back off in training and stuff like that. They're not going to be 100% fresh at some of the upcoming meets. We've maybe tapered off a little bit, not a true peak, but tapered off a little bit for the 2 southern meets just because, you know, we can't promise good weather right now. But right now we are training all the way through, and we'll probably see some of our marks and people that are competing drop off a little bit this week, but a little bit is okay. And that's just going to be because you know, we're lifting, we're back to our full lifting schedule, we're back to training hard on Thursday and just getting, you know, the Friday recovery into the Saturday meet and stuff. So we're going to see, we may see a little bit of tapering off here in our performances the next couple weeks, but that's perfectly fine because then we're going to rev back up again into the last couple weeks of the regular season and then into the conference meet for the people that are qualified. And we'll taper off a little bit more before those last couple meets for people that aren't qualified yet so that they can get that qualifying mark.
And training-wise, what is your approach?
Yeah, well, it's definitely like a big trust in your coaches. Like as a runner, you need to trust and believe that your coach is going to do the right thing for you and make the right training program for you. And also, it's a thing of not being satisfied. If you run well one weekend, you can't really just be like, oh, I ran well this weekend. You gotta keep being motivated and keep working towards a higher goal.
So let's talk about this weekend. We race on April Fool's Day, but it will be no fool. The Dave Labor Invite down in Slippery Rock. What can we expect? You touched on it, but what can we expect from that meet?
You're going to see some people do some different events, so that would be the biggest thing. It's, we're probably not going to have the huge results and stuff we have the last couple weeks because we're moving people around to different events and stuff like that. We will, you'll see some people do the regular events and stuff like that, but for the most part, you'll see people in weird spots, I guess to say, and anything else that people will be moving around on the track and stuff in different events and stuff. So it'll be a little bit more of a training trip for us more than anything else. A few people just trying to hit PSAC qualifying marks if they haven't yet and things so that we can, do the moving around and stuff later. But you're probably not going to see all the big performances and stuff we have the last couple weeks. But that's okay because that's what our season is all about. We can't, we're not like the other sports. We don't go out every week trying to win and PR and stuff like that. Sometimes we have to use them as training trips.
And before you go, I do want to get your opinion on this. Of course, a big news that happened this past week with Lock Haven shutting down their indoor track and field team. As a competitor and as a coach who coached against those teams, what are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, I feel awful for them. Some people may look at it as being like, oh yeah, it's going to make it easier for us. But ultimately we want our sport to be good. When our sport is good, we're all better. And unfortunately, when people are, when they're cutting programs and stuff, and you never want to see, another school look at that and say, well, if they can do it, we can do it too, and stuff like that. So we don't want to see any cuts anywhere in our sport, across the nation and stuff like that. Even if it helps us in a little bit, really, when our sport gets cut and it hurts our sport, that hurts all of us a lot more than a little bit of a competitive advantage. So, we feel awful for them. We hope that they, can find a way to make it work and stuff that way. And, it's better than maybe the alternative of completely cutting track, but, it does hurt. And, Corey can speak for it hurts to not have an indoor track season. Yes, you get to train, you get to do stuff like that, but it is a disadvantage to not get out and actually compete like the rest of the schools do.
And I guess I'll go to you now because you do have that inside track. We don't have an indoor track team here. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, it's definitely a hard situation. It's tough for them because, for years now they've had indoor track, they've competed, and there's going to be guys on that team that would have competed this past year but will not next year. And, one of the hardest things to do is like watch a championship meet. When we host the PSAC meet, and having to watch it, it's motivating, but it's tough at the same time because you could imagine yourself being in those positions, possibly winning some races, doing well in these races. So it's hard to just sit on the sidelines and watch during the indoor track season.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on the Scott Sports Show, and I wish you the best going forward.
Thanks a lot.
For updates on this story and many more, head over to edinburghnow.com. I'm Drew Patrick. Thanks for watching.